We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Friday. We've had kind of a busy week. We've got a guest on the show. Old Soul was yesterday. Always great to hear from her. We have another guest who's been on the show before, but it's been a while. His name is Matt. He's from Ohio. He's a blue dot in that largely red state of Ohio. He was on some time back. And one advantage we have is you're a hardcore millennial now. We don't get too many really young folks on here, but you're one of them.
I'm an elder millennial. Yeah, that's me. 86.
You were born in '86. My oldest son was born in '87, and he's a millennial. And I don't he doesn't talk to me about politics because he's one of these guys that's the doomsdayers and the well, it never works out, so it's going to go bad. I try to tell him, fuck off, man. If you don't have some balls right now, you're going to get run over eventually. Um, but remind us what you do in Ohio.
By trade, I'm a welder and live in the northeast region, right under Lake Erie, about 40 miles, if that.
And when you came before we got on the show here, you said you wanted to give some accolades to your governor, who is a Republican. And as you pointed out, we don't have a lot of positive things to say about Republicans. Uh, so what's going on in Ohio? And this is an important topic too because people were worried about it.
No, Governor Mike DeWine. I actually met the man when I was back in, I want to say 2015 or 16, when I was in the sheet metal union. So shout out to local 33 guys. But yeah, he actually did a walkthrough with his group of guys and checked out the facility and our training center and everything we had going on and all the different classrooms and work areas and stuff. But seemed like a nice enough guy. I got to shake his hand and meet him face to face. That was pretty cool. But then, 2020 rolls through and he's still in charge. And, he was there for us when everybody kind of needed that pep talk about how it's not just an individual effort. It's going to take everybody to get over what's going on. And he had to do that a couple times. So I kind of commend him for that. And then here recently, he did a special session with everybody in Ohio House to pretty sure it's going to go through, but to make sure that Joe Biden gets on the ballot here in Ohio,
And that was a
red
pretty
state regardless.
that was a pretty big story recently. Actually, a couple of states were going through this because of the timing of the Democratic convention. Some states were saying things like,
Yeah,
"We can't put them on the ballot until after the convention, and then it's too late." But it sounds like the Republican governor in your state made sure that that's going to happen.
yeah, he called it out to its face and said it was just a ridiculous issue, and he was going to do what he can to get it solved in time.
But I heard a lot of people. You know how people get, and they get worried and wring their hands and clutch their pearls. Oh my God, Joe Biden's not going to be on the ballot in Ohio, and I think Alabama was the other one. And they say, "Aren't you worried?" No, I'm not fucking worried because no governor of any state is going to try to exclude the sitting president of the United States for an election. It'll get worked out one way or another, either the Democrats or the Republicans, but it's just not going to happen. It's just one of those scare tactics that we constantly get from Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, I remember hearing the news. I want to say Young Turks had something about it on, and uh, not short, just a few days after that, Dwayne had a press conference saying, "I'm calling a special assembly to session, knock this out."
Yeah,
And
that's
that's what I kind of like about him. He is an older guy. He is old school, and he stands up for what's right and how things are and how they should be, and definitely not buying into the MAGA bullshit.
yeah. And I think a lot more people are going to be stepping away from the MAGA bullshit as it continues to fail at every turn. What's your gut reaction with Ohio? Do you think Ohio has a chance, any chance at all of turning blue? I don't know enough about the
No,
state. No way.
no, we'll give a good effort. We'll probably be in the high 40s like 2020.
Any chance of getting rid of Jim Jordan?
It's a small, it does cover a lot of land, but we have what, five major cities
Right.
within Ohio. So our population is actually 11.5 million or something, if I'm right on that. It's
Okay.
one little interesting video, but and then you know it is what it is. All those cities are mainly blue, then they start to turn purple, and then all your rural is pretty deep red.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you because you're a younger fella. I get a lot in the narrative about, boy, the young people are so mad at Joe Biden because of his stance with Israel. I know they're talking about Gen Z to a large extent, but some millennials as well. As a millennial, with all the other stuff that's going on, how important is Joe Biden's stance on Israel to you?
To me personally, he's doing what he's supposed to do,
Right.
you know. And I think I said this last time. It's not like he loaded up Air Force One and packed it full of shit and dropped it off when he went over there. He's trying to talk to Yahoo as much as he can, but
Well,
you know. And then I think the last thing I heard about the situation is he was putting a hold on a bunch of military shipments if something didn't pan out, and then the ceasefire was starting to happen. I haven't really heard too much about it here recently, so I'm kind of out of the loop on it.
well, there's supposedly another deal that allegedly Israel and Palestine has agreed on, and Hamas hasn't agreed as yet. Um, as much as I think there's a lot of people at fault here, Israel and Hamas, the only innocent people are the people in Gaza, the Palestinians that are the collateral damage. Um, it just seems, make no mistake, I would like to see Hamas wiped out. They are a terrorist organization. They should be gone. They are a scourge on this world. But this stuff, it always goes through a lot of shit to get it settled. This is nothing new. I've seen this 10 times in my life.
And these guys aren't hiding out in caves that you can just investigate on for a while and then just blow them up. I mean, that's the problem. These guys are ingrained underneath towns and cities, hiding beneath these innocent people, and it's so terrible. But and that's the other part of it, the way Benjamin's handled everything. And you know, up until this point, it's like I don't give two shits. I'm going to do what I want to do,
Right.
it seems like.
Um,
So I mean, supposed to do, I think he's handled it the best way he can.
he's handled it like a president of the United States. And why some people
Yeah.
are upset because they're used to the 4 years with a president that doesn't know how to behave that way. He's going to bomb everybody or do all this sort of stuff. You need somebody with some decency and some integrity and doesn't lie to you. Um, well, it's been a while since we've talked, and you know this whole thing with Donald Trump and the MAGA things for me is really sliding and starting to slide quickly. From the last time we talked to now, what's your perception of the way of the election of MAGA and all this stuff? Do you feel like we're making some headway?
There's some progress happening for sure. I mean, if you're paying attention, you can see it, you can follow it. Uh, he is. Uh, I'll go ahead and shout him out. I guess he's kind of arrogant, but the Pac-Man show, Dave Pac-Man, he'll give you all the straight up
Yeah,
information
I like
and
Dave. I like
kind
Dave
of a,
Packman.
I don't know.
Well, he's a typical media
He's not too
guy.
bad,
No,
but
I think he does a fine job. I think he's a
he'll play
typical
all the
media
clips.
guy.
He'll play all the yeah. He'll play all the good clips that you need to hear of this man talking, and it's pretty. If you want to dig deeper, you can. It's all right there, but his slipping and slurring and bullshit, I think it's finally starting to fade off and just finally saying all the wrong things. And now
Right.
there's 34 felony charges. And I mean, the list just keeps growing every few days. So,
If if you
but
ever,
in my town, all the flags are going up. I got to drive past a nice F Biden with the American flag in the middle of it every day.
yeah.
That shit's getting pretty old, but if the kids aren't in the car, I'm yelling something out the window.
Well, if you've ever wondered whether or not Donald Trump is a liar, and I know you and I and everybody else listening to the show knows he's a pathological liar, but he said something yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, and this is the epitome of bullshit. And if anybody believes this, they are woefully uninformed. Donald Trump was trying to take credit for the $35 a month insulin. He put that together. He made that happen. Fuck, it didn't happen until most of the way through Biden's administration. But this, he will say anything, and he'll say it repeatedly in hopes that people will believe it. And I think fewer and fewer people are buying into it, and more and more people are listening to it, so they understand he's lying. But that base will fucking believe anything.
Yeah, that base is going to go right off the cliff with him. But that's news to me, and it's just laughable.
Yeah,
It's like, really serious.
we've got this debate coming
He
up.
kept giving us the whole my plan's going to come out in 2 weeks, and he didn't do shit.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I kind of went through that when I
thanks for
worked
trying
for
to stick.
when I went through when I worked with a government agency, and people would be asked for things, and they would say, "Yeah, that's coming in 2 weeks." To us, that was like giving us the finger. It's never coming, and that's what Donald Trump fell into. Um, Now, a week from today, Friday, a week from today is the big debate. And there's been a big debate about the debate. Will Donald Trump show up? And I don't know if Donald Trump has the balls to not show up, and I don't know if he has the balls to show up. It's going to be intriguing if he does. I hope he does, because I get the sense that he's going to get decimated.
Yeah, I'm dancing over here because let me give you and the boomer community a little backstory on this one.
Sure, go ahead.
2001 June 2001 June, he comes through Wellington spewing the same stuff 3 years ago, same stuff to the week. I mean, you can put on repeat. It's on YouTube right now. I'm sure it is. But that was my birthday weekend. So I wasn't about, there's booths of people selling all the crap. There's just crowds of people flooding the town. And here in town, Wellington is the Lorain County Fair, which is the second largest fair in the state, next to the state fair down in Columbus.
Mhm.
But, if you're a believer in what goes around comes around, he gets all butt hurt, wants a debate. Joe calls him out, gives him one. Here we go. It's on my birthday, June 27th, 3 years later.
Well,
So
that's
it's
going to be happy birthday.
bail out, or you're going to show up and then you're just going to still look like a pussy ass bitch and you're going to get decimated. It's
you know,
over. So
you,
I'm going to have the popcorn and everything ready.
something came out yesterday about the debate. There's a lot of discussions, and Donald Trump seems to be a little unhinged as it gets closer, trying to come up with some kind of lie, like maybe I'll just lose on purpose, or maybe his staff is telling him don't do it. And but the, but but they came out with a flip of the coin as to who gets to speak last, who gets the last word. And it turned out Donald Trump won that. And people are going, oh my God, Donald gets the last word. He can win. Let me be honest with you. Joe Biden could sit there and say nothing and let Donald Trump talk for an hour. That would be more damning to Donald Trump than anything Joe Biden could say to him. Donald Trump is going to destroy himself. Joe Biden is a decent debater. He's not real fast moving, but he doesn't have to be. Donald Trump will kill himself, just like he's always done.
Joe has all the proof in the pudding from the last 3, 4 years. So
Right.
it's all right. So I hope he just stands there, stares at him with his arms crossed, and just go ahead, say what you want, and just let him go. Because that's exactly what he'll do. He'll just start rambling and fumbling and getting pissed off, and that'll be the end of it.
Well,
Joe turns around the camera and says, "Really, you're going to vote for this guy?"
yeah, pretty much. I'm kind of I talked about this before in the podcast, and I'm a firm believer in this. If you have a guy like Donald Trump and he's a bully, his advantage is to come after you and get you back on your heels and talk over you and all that kind of stuff. If Joe Biden is capable of it, he needs to go on the attack right away. And I don't mean yelling or screaming, but if there's one way to throw Donald Trump off his game is to embarrass him, to insult him, because he doesn't know what to do then. All of a sudden, it goes to complete emotions, complete reactionary tactics, and then he looks like a fool. I mean, you've got 34 felony charges, you've got the lies he's told, the failures he's had. And I think Joe needs to come out and spell that out because this is going to be an opportune time. Not only is it going to be Democrats watching it, it'll be the one time Republicans will be watching it too, and they'll have to hear the truth. So hopefully, I'm sure Joe's ready for this thing, and it's going to be an easy deal for him. I just hope they don't give Donald Trump drugs just to calm the motherfucker down, because if they do that, he may come off a little more legit.
Yeah, who knows? At this point, it might actually help him out. Just let him fall asleep in a chair somewhere and just everybody be quiet
Yeah, absolutely,
and
absolutely.
finally shut up.
I, if it goes the way I think this could be a real turning point in the election. Since the convictions, Donald Trump has been losing traction in polls and other situations, and I think that when he gets exposed for
Seven
who he
point
is,
swing.
yeah, and we still got 5 months before the election, so and it's not getting better for Donald Trump. There's nothing in the offing that's going to get better. I mean, the interesting thing is something came down yesterday too. After the conviction, um, Donald Trump presumed the gag order would be off, and it's not. He's still under the gag order up until the time of the sentencing. He appealed it, went to the appeals court, and the appeals court came back yesterday and said, nah, gag order's still on. So this is driving Donald Trump fucking nuts. I mean, he's got to even watch it at the debate. He could violate the gag order in the debate if he goes off on a tangent, which he's capable of.
July 11th to hear anything about it, correct?
Right, right.
So now until then, yeah, on top of the violations he has already got, if that judge really has any sort of oomph behind him to do something, you violated it 13 times. I'm giving you 13 days. Get out of my face.
That would be the kind of just desserts. Say he gave him a year, and then he appeals it. Now the judge
Just on the violation, 15 days. Your sentence will be some other, that can be a year, whatever. Down the road, you're going to appeal it after the election, bullshit, whatever. But for right now, 13 days, go away, nothing. You're going to sit in this cell. You're going to wear this suit. You're just going to sit there.
well, and that's the thing about this. And I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a judge, so I don't know for sure. But it makes sense to me that you have the convictions of the 34 felonies, but the gag order is a much different deal. I mean, if he gets thrown in jail for the gag order, separate from the issues with the convictions, there's really no way to over appeal that. I'm sure he'll try, but he's going to walk out the door that day and go into jail for 13 days. That's just what's going to happen.
That's what it's going to be. That's what I'm saying. If this judge, I mean, let's do it. I mean, it has to happen. On top of, if I was in trouble, but this is me talking to my probation officer right now, that doesn't seem right.
No, I think
And
that,
if you come pee in the, I got better things to do. Oh, okay, that's fine.
well,
So that shit better show up in that case,
yeah, I think the fact
that
that he
too.
refused, I think the fact that he refused the drug test has to come into play too. I mean, why would you, if you're required to give a drug test and you refuse, the only assumption could be is that you're fucking doing drugs. And if you're doing drugs, that's going to come into play in the sentencing.
Joe better show up to that debate with piss in a cup. Just set it on his podium, and there you go.
take, take, take your little hands and grab your little wiener and pee in a cup yourself, bitch. That's what you got to do. That's, well, the other guy that's going to go to jail that also appealed things was Steve Bannon. Bannon's scheduled to go to jail on July 1st. Now, he was convicted of contempt of Congress and he appealed it. And I don't know how you appeal something like this. His contempt of Congress is this: you're subpoenaed to come testify in front of Congress and you don't come. There's no gray area here. You were fucking guilty of it. You didn't show, but he appealed it nonetheless. He got to stay out of jail. And so after that appeal lost, he said, you're going to jail July 1. And he's still trying to wriggle his way out of it. But the court said yesterday, no, bitch, you're going to jail July 1. There's no two ways around it. You're nobody and you're a fucking criminal. So you're going to jail.
Was it 4 months? See you later. Get
Four
out of my
months.
face.
4 months. And the best part of this is apparently he's just realizing it now. 2 years ago when he got convicted, if he'd into 4 months, he'd be done by now. But now he's just realizing that it's July, August, September, October, 4 months leading up to the election. He was known for saying, no jail can shut me up. Want to bet, bitch? Because you're going to be in jail for 4 months and you're going to have no say, no platform between now and the election. You weren't thinking ahead.
And call Michael Cohen what you want, but how many years ago was he convicted of all the bullshit? Got
Yeah.
sentenced 3 years, did 15 months. Shake
He,
your hands clean and go about your merry way. But
it, it,
that's just what you got to do.
well,
Don't be a fucking. Won't happen to you. Plain and simple.
well, the thing is with Steve Bannon too is once he does this 4 months, or while he's doing this 4 month, he has another trial starting in September about his stealing money from Trumplefucks of all things, and he's probably going to come up um, in the
Wall thing.
in the January 6th thing. Yeah, he's got a lot of troubles ahead of him. Things aren't looking good for Steve Bannon, but he sure talks a big game, doesn't he?
That's what he does. He just runs his mouth, and the whole MAGA crowd listens to it. And it's just, he's just your almost more in depth to the source uh Limbaugh, but not so much on a analog system, more of
Yeah.
just like podcast and whatever. But
Well, yeah, he's
Jordan,
a greasier and dirtier Rush Limbaugh, and that's fucking saying something. I got to be honest. Limbaugh had his issues too, but Steve Bannon's going to go away July 1. He's going to be completely out of the mix leading up to the election. Donald Trump will lose the election, and Steve Bannon will have no control thereafter. He will have absolutely nothing to say. We've got Um, if you've watched Donald Trump as of late and you've seen him talk, it's been really kind of, if somebody once wrote me a note and said, "Why are you making fun of this elderly man with diminished mental capacities?" I go, "Are you fucking kidding me? I will talk shit about him every day. You've mistaken me for some polite, appropriate motherfucker. If you're a bad guy, I'm talking shit about you. I don't care what your infirmities are until you're done and gone and out of the mix and no longer a danger to this country. We're going to talk shit about this guy."
That's just it. The shitstorm is on the biggest scale. It's it's our democracy. It's our country. It's everything. And he squeaked his pampered orange ass in there on a fluke. And they say, well, he only was there 4 years. It wasn't, everybody hang on there. But you know what? He got three of these dipshit judges in there in those 4 years.
Yeah.
And that's why we're into half the problems we are now. And if he, by the skin of his teeth, gets back in there, you know, that's just more judges down the pipe, probably. So
Yeah.
it's just not going to happen. It ain't going to happen. I'm convinced it's not going to happen. There ain't
Yeah.
no fucking way.
People have told me, "What if Trump wins?" I said, "Please tell me how that's possible." And they all say the same thing. "Well, I just have this feeling," or "the media said that." Sorry, that's not critical thinking. That's just emotions. And your emotions have been wrong so many times. Why are you relying on that? Um, I think that um, I think more and more people are starting to feel a little stronger about Donald Trump getting beaten because of all the shit that's coming out. I think about when I was young, and there were candidates that get caught cheating on their wives or having going to psychologists and stuff, and that pretty much ended their career. When you look at all the things tied to Donald Trump, the convictions, Roe v. Wade, all this shit, how can anybody
Yeah,
think
it
he's going to
just
win?
does not make any sense. And they're just hanging on to that 2016 fantasy, and it's polar opposite of everything that's happening. It's
Well, when
and they're going to find out. They're in this debate if he does show up, and it's just going to grow from there. I think.
yeah, when they come out and they say, "Well, he won in 2016," I go, "Really? You're going to compare 2016 Donald Trump to 2024 Donald Trump? Entirely different things." We didn't know anything about Donald Trump in 2016. The country was in a much different situation. We hadn't gone through all the bullshit. We just came out of Barack Obama. So things were going pretty good and pretty calm and pretty decent. We felt pretty good about it. But then Donald Trump comes in, he loses in 2020, more shit comes out. You really can't make the comparison between 2016 and 2020 because there is absolutely no comparison.
No, not at all. And I'm on a golf league on Wednesdays, and my partner is a real good friend of mine, and he's I lately when we've been hanging out last couple years, I can see that he's leaning that way a little bit, and we actually kind of had our first open conversation that only lasted about 5 minutes about a face to face one the other day, and I said, "All right, I'm gonna have this with you. Go ahead. What do you got?" That's just how I opened it, and he goes, "Well, I could just tell you this old man ain't gonna win. This old ass ain't gonna win for sure." I said, "Okay," because the other guy's such a spry 78, glitching and stuttering and slipping and forgetting who he's running against and who he did run against and what year it is. But keep going. What else? He goes, "Well, what do you think the economy is going through right now? Everybody's paying." I said, "Well, GDP's going outrageous. The market's going up. Inflation's at 3 something percent. What are you talking about?" well, when you pay for everything. And I'm like, well, that's your corporate greed right there. That's not anything what you just brought up.
Not
Well,
Joe
I
Biden.
agree. So we came to an agreement on that. And I was like, well, who do you think is gonna stand up to corporations? The guy that gives them a tax cut or the other guy that's actually wanting to step up to them? And then that was kind of the end of it.
Well, I tell you what, when I hear about a guy like that, I wish I would meet guys like that because to somebody, I'm not much of a betting man, but that motherfucker's so much of a mark. Tell him for me. Tell him for me. You want to put 500 down if you feel that confident? I'll send you the 500, Matt. You can hold on to it, and then you can collect my other 500 and take half of his 500 for the vig, if you will.
Yeah, I'll hold it in escrow for you guys, and I'll
Yeah,
let them know.
yeah. Tell him I'm in for 500 if he feels real strongly about it, and if he goes 1,000, I'll go 1,000. What the hell? I mean, it's not like I got a lot of discretionary money, but I got enough to get a guaranteed fucking win. That's a good
Yeah,
investment.
yeah, for sure.
Well, let me ask you about that because, as I sit here, I've said this before, as I sit here as a baby boomer, younger baby boomer, but a boomer nonetheless, and I see the prospects of Donald Trump if he were to become president. And I'll be honest with you, in my current position, retired on a pension and all that sort of stuff, for if I was only focused on just me, my life would not change. I'll be dead before a lot of the shit happens. But you're a younger man, you have a young family. This has got to weigh on you much heavier than maybe on somebody like me. The only reason I worry about it is because I got kids your age. I got grandkids.
100%. That's why I'm so involved with it now and pay attention to what's going on now. Because yeah, there is other things I'd rather be focused on or spending my time with, but this is the sidetrack that I go to is just keeping informed and updated on what's going on and how stupid these Republicans look, and the decent ones that were out there are just they're probably so ashamed of what's going on when we talk about how are they going to bounce back from this. And I mean, he's going to get dumped on his ass in November. It's going to happen. So I
Yeah.
don't know that. I mean, I don't know where you go. I don't know how you
The
get
thing
out
I,
of trouble. It's going to take you a hell of a long time. And that's what Matt said too. He goes, all right, well, I wish both of these guys weren't running. And I said, well, then wait for 2028. You know how you get there? You keep your democracy going.
right,
If Dipshit there, he's going to try to undo all of it. So
right. Well, that's the thing. When I talk to young people, they say, "Well, I don't like Joe Biden." I said, "Here's your option." I give them two analogies. I said, "Okay, you don't like Joe Biden. He's not my favorite guy either, but he's done a lot given all the hurdles he's had to go through. Say you're going to a doctor and you can go in one door and they tell you got a sprained ankle, or another door and they've got give you Ebola. Which one are you going to take? You're going to suffer through that sprained ankle just because you know it's going to get better. That Ebola is going to fucking kill you. So that's your option with Donald Trump and Joe Biden. If you go with Donald, if you have hopes and dreams of it being a certain way and a younger president, the only way you're getting there is through Joe Biden. Because if you go through Donald Trump, those rights, those options will be taken away from you. You may not be getting everything you want right now, but if you want to get to where you want to get to, you got to make the right moves.
that's it. You got to keep on this blue train that we're on, and it's only going to get better because hopefully the house flips and we can go from there. And being from Ohio, I've had enough of Jim Jordan as far as I could throw him. I think he's a criminal too. And speaking of subpoenas, I'm pretty sure it's 800 and so days he ain't showed up for his.
Yeah, yeah. That's the ironic thing is they want to go after
And then
Merrick
every
Garland.
time you CJ, he down.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, give me a break.
the hypocrisy is just ridiculous. I don't know if you listened, but I did a show with Tammy Wilson. Tammy Wilson is
Yes.
running against Jim Jordan for his House seat. Seemed like a very sharp lady, very knowledgeable lady. Is it realistic to think that she has a chance against Jim Jordan in a heavy red district?
I gotta look more into his district, honestly, because she did bring up a point that the maps are still uh the district maps are still all laid out
Yeah.
right now. But if memory serves, or what I did look at, he does fall within Oberlin College, and that populace is just huge.
Yeah.
So how I think she's got a fair fight, that's for sure. And the way
Well,
she's
that's
talking and the support she's got behind her, I think she's got a pretty good chance.
well, that's good to hear. I think when Donald Trump loses, he's going to be screaming fake, rigged, all that kind of stuff. But I think you're going to see some representatives and maybe a senator or two that get taken down on the Republican side. I think we're going to be hearing a lot of people going Kerry Lake on this shit, and everybody is in a faked fucking election. I just don't think that it's one thing when it happened in 2020 and people had to take a look at it seriously and listen to them. I think at this point, it's just ridiculous and they're going to get laughed at more than anybody's going to look into it or take it seriously.
If anything, there's going to be more uh, people watching the voting systems and more, uh, a closer eye after what happened 4 years ago. I bet people are going to be even more hyped up and vigilant about the voting in all the different spots around the country. But it's weird. I live in a very, very rural part, and we actually go to where they host the gun club here in my township up the road, but that's where I got to go and vote. And you walk in there, and even in 2020, there was maybe a 15, 20 person line, went real fast, probably 8 or 10 machines.
Yeah.
See the pictures of all these loaded places, just these huge cities, and a little side room with 5 booths there. It's like, are you serious? That shit's got to get fixed too.
Well, if we go back to 2020, we had a huge turnout. Joe Biden got more votes than any presidential candidate in history. And had Joe Biden not got that, Donald Trump would have had more votes than any presidential candidate in history. We had a lot of people come out. And we think that that's largely due to the fact that people were afraid of the prospect of Donald Trump getting back into the presidential office. I happen to think that the turnout will be even bigger in 2024 because these people were scared are still scared, maybe more scared now. And that's going to cause Democrats to come out en masse. And when Democrats come out en masse, Democrats typically win.
The shit he's spewing isn't gathering up anybody. And the
Uh,
places he keeps going, he knows he already has somewhat of a crowd there waiting for him. And then he
right.
lies about how. So everybody's seeing the bullshit more than they were before. And it's only going to get more and more as we get closer to November. But yeah, I mean, he's just going to, I think, okay, when 2016, even electoral college wise, it was 5 to 6 states, 77,000 vote difference in those states got him to
Right.
win.
Right.
Joe won, same states, about 120,000 vote difference. So if we show up in mass, then he's just going to get stomped.
Well, and we've got a couple of issues states that are issues that didn't come into play in 2020. For example, Arizona. Arizona's dealing with that abortion thing. It's very unpopular. They tried to enforce some draconian law from the 1850s. And Donald Trump says, yeah, let the states do whatever they want. I think Donald Trump lost a lot of traction in Arizona. He lost it last time anyway. But the big one, the biggest concern that Donald Trump should have now, and he's not considering, is Florida. Florida has
Florida.
obviously been a red state, but they got a 6-week abortion ban. Um, and they're going to have the abortion question on the ballot. So people, Democrats, Republicans that were um, for keeping abortion legal, they're going to go out in mass because they're scared to death about their futures. And they're going to realize that, or they already realize that Donald Trump is the one claiming responsibility for doing this. So this is not going to bode well for Donald Trump in Florida. And I know people think I'm crazy, but given all those circumstances, Florida could be flipped to blue. And if that happens, Republicans have no chance.
No, not at all. I agree with Florida for sure. They got a good chance. And then what was he running his mouth about Milwaukee? You know, I'm sure that makes Wisconsin feel pretty happy.
Yeah. In fact, I want to spend some time talking about the upcoming convention in Milwaukee. That's an interesting scenario, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I tell you what,
They
Matt, we're
find
going. What's that?
they find a sponsor yet?
No, well, they did, but they bailed on him because they don't want to be associated with Donald Trump. Um, all right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. We have Matt with us. He's not only a millennial, he is a blue dot in the red state of Ohio. So he has an interesting perspective of what's going on there. The big difference between Matt and I said, for me, no matter what happens, it isn't going to affect my life. But as a young man with a family, you have one thing that I don't have: a lengthy future. I tell people I'm 64 years old. If I live another 20 years, I'm lucky at doing that. So, if I wanted to, I could say, fuck you all. I'm going to die, whatever. But then I have to live with the idea of my kids and young people like you and my grandkids going through shit, a mess that we left behind. So I think we have a responsibility to at least try to do something. And before we took the break, we were going to talk about the upcoming RNC convention, the national convention. Interesting thing about this convention, there's a lot of fucked up things about this convention, but the first one we have to consider is something we talked about before. Donald Trump's sentencing comes on July 11th. The the convention comes on July 15th, 4 days after the sentencing. What happens if they do put him in jail for 5, 6 days for the violations of the gag order? Motherfucker would miss the convention. You want to hear some crying, whining Republicans at that point? This isn't fair. No, he's a fucking criminal. He should be accountable. It is fair.
Legitimately fair. He should get. I'm saying a day for each each violation on that gag order. So the timing don't work out. Sorry, Don. Sucks to be you.
Well,
Don't be a fucking.
put it this way: if it were you, a millennial, just average guy like you or me, uh, and you were going to be sentenced, and you had a kid's birthday party 5 days from the time you got sentenced, you think they'd cut you a break? No, they wouldn't cut you a break. You broke the law. You're going to fucking jail. And that's the thing. Up to this point, Donald Trump has been given a lot of leeway, far more than any of us would. There has to come a time when he's accountable and he doesn't get preferential treatment. And the fact that he's now a convict, literally a convicted felon, those special that special treatment should be no more.
That's what a lot of people I think are starting to realize, that he has been pampered and babied this whole time and running his mouth and doing his usual crap. But the yeah, just the blatantness to it. It's got to hit that judge a certain way to actually do something about this. And if it messes up your convention dates, so be it. But
Well,
yeah,
this judge particularly seems to be pretty straightforward and pretty serious. People will say, well, he didn't hold him accountable for the gag order violations, and he said specifically that I'll set it aside for another time to address. And the reason he did that wasn't because he was being wimpy or because he was scared. He was doing it because he knew this trial could be a shit show. So he just wanted to get through it as quickly and efficiently as possible. And that's why he set aside that decision till later. And that's why I think it is going to come back to haunt Donald Trump. Everything he's done, there has to be some accountability for it. And I think if there's one judge that will do it, I think it's Juan Marchand. At least I'm hoping that's the case.
yeah, that's what I'm hoping to for sure.
What, so we were talking about the upcoming convention, and there's a lot of issues about this. First and foremost, you brought it up before we went on the air about how Donnie Trump slipped just a little bit and said the host city where this convention is going to be sucks, is horrible, and it gets out. And then he comes out yesterday and says, "Oh, it's all fake news. It's out of context, deep state, and all that shit. I love Milwaukee." Unfortunately, when he was doing that, he was standing in Racine, Wisconsin, and I don't even think he fucking knew.
I bet they're pretty easy to tell apart too. He's just
Well,
what he
here's
is.
here's what I know about Wisconsin as a Minnesota native. There's a lot of rivalry between Wisconsin and Minnesota, especially with the college football teams. I'll put it to you this way: um, when my kids were really little, when my kids were really little, we were sitting in the stands in Madison, Wisconsin, watching the Gophers play the Badgers. I've got a son that's 5 years old. I told my wife, do not put them in Gopher jerseys and Gopher hats. Do not do that in Madison. Of course, she didn't listen to me. So there's my little 5 year old sitting there going, yay, Gophers. And behind us is this drunk Wisconsinite. And this Wisconsinite, he's probably 30 years old at the time. He points at my 5 year old son and says, shut the fuck up, you pussy, to my 5 year old. Now I'm about ready to stand up, but before I can do that, my wife stands up. And I got to tell you, if you
Oh,
want to, if you're going to have somebody lose their shit, you hope it's not my wife, because I'm going to think about it a little bit and how to handle this. She's just going to go fucking nuts. And she kind of did. You don't go after a mom's 5 year old kid. You have kids. What would you or your wife do if someone told your kid to shut the fuck up, you pussy? That might make you a little angry.
oh yeah, you'd have two really hot hornets on your hands, and yeah, if mommy was there, she'd think it to you faster than I could. I bet.
My point of telling you that story is this: if you go into Wisconsin and say the Green Bay Packers, the Brewers, uh, uh, that a certain city sucks, they're not going to like you at all. They're going to hate your guts. And I can't wait to see him show up in Milwaukee, if he can show up to Milwaukee to this convention. There's going to be a lot of people, even Trumplafucks out there, going to be pissed because he had the audacity to talk shit about one of their premier cities.
That's what I'm hoping for. Some of them actually turn on him a little bit.
Well, I think
Yeah,
we're
I got
seeing.
us to the NASCAR race is about 2 hours into Michigan from here, just over the border there, and Brooklyn, Michigan. It's a huge track, monster place. But my uncle had tickets on the infield because he has a nice bus that he decked out, with the porch on top and all that.
Right.
And I was actually with my fiance, and we're out walking around. I get something on my shirt, and I go to change. The only shirt I got left is a big red shirt with the Buckeye O on the front of it. So I'm about 5, 6 beers deep at that point. All right, let's go. I'm gonna walk around with this on. Got a couple of "Go Blues" yelled at me, but nothing serious. But yeah, I kind of know the walking in the other territory, so to speak.
Yeah, and places like Wisconsin, like Michigan, and like Ohio, these are people really proud of their states, and they'll fight you over it. They don't think twice about it. That's why I'm saying this was a horrific mistake by Donald Trump. It's and the thing about it is when he goes to the debate, or if he's going to the convention, people will want to shut him up. And I say just the opposite. Let that motherfucker talk, because he will destroy himself. Like I said about the debate, he is his worst enemy. He doesn't need to worry about Joe Biden. He has to uh, worry about his twisted and delusional mind and his mealy mouth comments and not being able to finish sentences. It'll be very clear who he is and who Joe Biden is. And Joe Biden won't come off as a ball of fire, but at least you'll be able to understand what he has to say.
Yeah, he's gonna have fact and reality right there with him. So not worried about it at all. But I mean, just and it's getting scary now with Trump. It's this weird half word glitch.
Yeah.
His tilts, and then he tries to get other words, and then it's an instant distraction to somebody in the crowd or the waves of a lake behind the people. It's
Yeah.
just totally weird. And then this dark story with the battery. I'm smart because my uncle went to MIT or something. I mean, it's just wow,
You know,
wow. And to
if
buy into it really is. It should be studied.
well, and if I was interviewing the guy and he told those kinds of stories, my first question is, what point are you trying to make, and how does it relate to what we're talking about? And he does and says things trying to be clever or funny, and he's just not clever or funny. It all comes off bad every time he does it. But apparently, nobody around him's been able to um, stop him from doing it. I sincerely think once he gets in a situation where he's flustered, he just goes all on instinct, and his instincts suck.
Yeah, he's just gonna get mouthy and watch him call him old. He's gonna throw it out there, and it's just gonna be it's just gonna be so entertaining.
It will be. One of the things we're waiting for from the
If
Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is going to have to come up with a decision as to Donald Trump's absolute immunity, which I personally don't think there's any way they're going to give him immunity. That would be crazy, because then Joe Biden has immunity and so does everybody thereafter. It's not a good thing. It's not logical. Um, but the thing about it is that a lot of people are worried about this, thinking he's going to get immunity. And the one thing that people who don't think he's going to get immunity will say, well, they'll just send it back to the lower court, Judge Chutkin, and that will cause a bigger delay. But the fact of the matter is, I don't know that Donald Trump wants that to happen, because what could occur if it goes back to Judge Chutkan? She said, listen, I'll cancel my vacation. We need to get this fucking thing going. And there's the talk about got to give them 88 days to do it, which would put us close to or past the election. Um, but the one thing she can do with this is tell Donald Trump and say, well, if you want to keep trying to appeal this, let's see all your evidence. And then they'll be forced to give their evidence before the trial, which is something they don't want to do. The prosecution would be more than happy. Them sending it back to the lower court is ultimately a win for Joe Biden. It'll just make their lives more difficult, and they won't want to do this shit.
Oh, I think he's trying to claim immunity on two of the three cases he still has left.
Right, right. And I don't know if the immunity case ties into the Georgia situation or not, because that's a state case. Um, but somebody I think Eric made the comment that, no, it wasn't Eric, it was somebody else on TikTok. And I mentioned this yesterday. Donald Trump's really caught in a bad position. All he can do is win the case and fix it for himself, or win the election and get rid of all this stuff, or be resolved to the fact that he's going to fucking spend the rest of his life either in court or in jail. Because while there may be some question about whether or not he'll get jail from the Manhattan district, there is no question he will get jail if found guilty in any of the other three cases, because he's got two things working for him. They're more serious cases. The evidence is all there, and he's already a convicted felon when he goes on trial there. And that kind of puts the courts in a situation. Now we got to put this motherfucker in jail. He's a repeat offender. He's a danger to the country. So Donald Trump's only option here is to win the election, and it's not going well.
Yeah, that's his game plan, is to just win and make it all go away. But he hasn't done anything to get more votes. If anything, he's lost them.
Yeah.
And I think everything is shrinking around him, and he knows it. And that's why everything's starting to just doesn't look the same. He doesn't sound the same. I mean, it's starting to hit him now, and it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, for any of those folks that want to compare 2016 to 2024, all they have to do is look at a speech by Donald Trump in 2016 and a speech by Donald Trump in 2024. We're talking about a guy that's diminished quite a bit since 2016. I mean, he was a fucking idiot in 2016. Now he's a confused idiot in 2024.
Definitely. It's the same old crap, just takes a little bit longer. The glitches are in there. And the thing that really bothers me a lot is the er.
Yeah.
It's just like,
He
oh,
didn't used to do that.
not that bad.
No, no, it's obviously taken its toll. And, think about this. You're a younger man, you're in your late 30s, you're perfectly healthy, of sound mind. Can you imagine what it's like to, you're like everybody else. You deal with problems of the day, problems with your job or your family and stuff. And that's tough enough to deal with. Can you imagine what it would be to have hanging over your head as a young man 34 felony charges, the prospect of going to jail, losing all your money, um, being found liable for sexual abuse or rape, all this hanging over your head while you're trying to run for reelection? I don't know how any human survives that.
Looking like an ass in court, your wife not wishing you a happy Father's Day. I mean, you name it. And yeah, it's got to weigh hard. And yeah, it's just going to get worse, and it's just going to keep going. And that's why he's doing this. He says it himself. He's got to win, and that's it. and it's not going to happen. So
No, no. Um, the let me ask you this. You know, we've talked about the inflation stuff, and I'm curious as to your perspective on it. You're in a red state. We know inflation has been an issue. This is the talking point with the Republicans trying to blame Joe Biden for it when it's not really his fault. How is it for a young man and a family right now um, dealing with the cost of things? Because I know things are much much more expensive than they once were, but I'm in the fortunate position that I only have my wife and I, so it's not as um, problematic for us. But how do you, as a young family, how are you feeling right now in terms of the financial situation, knowing that Joe Biden's not at fault for it, but how are you feeling about that? How is it affecting you?
yeah, we've gone through the changes just like everybody else. And, you have two little ones. Thankfully, one's in school now, but, or has been for a little bit. And the other one's almost there. But childcare is just so expensive and outrageous. So you try and find cheaper solutions for childcare, but then it comes with more risk,
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. What are you going to do? Thankfully, we found a really great person right up the road from us, and I think she's about to get out of it actually. But Max will be in preschool this fall, so that's going to help. But yeah, I mean, just yeah, it's the groceries, it's utilities. The property value has gone up, so my mortgage went up a little bit with everything tied into that. So it's
It's not easy.
adjust and do the best you can and stay on top of things. And at the same time, both of us are making more money than we ever have with just experience and staying in our trades or whatever. And doesn't make sense. But then when you boil it down and you look at why, you know,
Well, COVID is obviously part of this. Republicans are another part of this. When people, this is what I don't understand. When people are complaining about the cost of things, and they have every right to do that, they get mad at Joe Biden because he happens to be in office currently. But the fact of the matter is, Joe Biden's the only one of the two that's ever done anything for the middle class. We know if the Republicans get in, whether it be in the down ballot or Donald Trump as president, all the money is going to go to the wealthy people. It won't trickle down to you. So you can try to blame Joe Biden as much as you want about the current situation, but it's only going to get worse if you vote Republican at this point. And I hope people understand that and see what the truth is about that, because as much as electing Donald Trump, your freedoms are going to be limited and who knows what's going to happen to the country. But just by voting in Republicans in the down ballot, they're constantly going to be trying to obstruct anything that has to do with helping out people in the middle class, like childcare. You mentioned childcare. I remember when I first started um, getting getting charged childcare. I had two sons. We couldn't have them close together because I couldn't afford two kids in childcare at the same time. I just couldn't afford it. But when I first saw that first bill, I thought to myself, how the fuck am I even going to do this? I don't have that kind of money. But you have no choice. There should be something done about childcare in this country. If you can give 2 trillion to rich people, you can give people a break on childcare. That's far more important for the future of this country.
and it's not like it's some unheard of, you can't figure it out thing. I mean, there's other democracies around the world where you have help with child credit or child care situation. But
Now,
yeah, I mean, luckily we got our house in 2018 and the market was actually really, really good housing wise. So our interest rate was pretty manageable, and there was a lot of work that needed to be done, but it passed inspection, so we got a pretty reasonable price on it. But watching that incline, what's going on now, I can't believe anybody can afford to buy a house.
Yeah,
So I know
absolutely.
that really affects people, especially younger than me. I mean, they're trying to get their situations going, and that's
Well,
another thing that falls on a guy that's either going to help you and take care of the situation and try and come to some resolve, or the other guy's just going to keep let it happening, if not worse.
well, and I've got some bad news for young people who are struggling with paying for daycare. Um, Even if you get through this, you'll have some time to recover. But by the time you recover, then you got fucking college and that scam and that excessive cost. It seems like it never ends. They're constantly taking everything you have. And I've said before, and people think I'm joking. I'm not joking. I think there should be the loan forgiveness. There would be loan forgiveness more so than there is, had it not been for Republicans blocking it at every turn. But we know this country goes full force into any kind of crisis situation. You have a hurricane, you have fires, the full power of the federal government goes in, puts in money, does whatever they have to do. And I personally think, based on what we've seen with Trumplafucks and a large percentage of this country, we've got a crisis in education because we've got a fucking absolute epidemic of stupid in this country. And this country can't continue doing well unless we've got a good educated crowd. Uh, you know, people will say, oh, well, why would they pay off their debt? Well, motherfuckers, you need some educated people to keep pumping up this economy. And you can't put them into a slave debt situation because then they can't buy houses, they can't buy cars. By slamming these kids, whether it be for daycare or college, you're indirectly affecting the economy. And I always thought the Republicans were all for making the economy better. But in these cases, they're doing everything to fuck up the economy.
Yeah, it's the polar opposite of what should be done and how to handle it. And and at the time too, I understand completely why Obama was pushing education the way he was. And I believe it was a good thing and still is. But okay, so we're going to do that. And then you get told you're going to have these corporate jobs that are going to pay you this much. You graduate. Nope, never mind. We need this piece of paper. And what you qualify for is this job.
Right.
And you can't pay off your loan debt with that and then live and everything else. So, I feel I went another way. I got in a couple different companies right out of high school. And then, I had my daughter really young. So kind of found my way into the trades a little bit. So I think that's what I might get Matthew kind of focused on, or building trades, electrician, carpentry, masonry, something
Well,
good like that. Union
eh,
behind him.
and that's the thing. Over and above that being your choice because of the opportunities you have, there's an absolute shortage of tradespeople in this country. Try to hire an electrician right now, and you're 2 months out. Same thing with a plumber. And these people who are in the trades, I'll guarantee you, they make more from the get go than anybody who gets a 4 year degree from a CLE or CLA or whatever, just your standard 4 year education. Those fuckers have a hell of a time finding a job because there's a million of them. They're all in debt now, and they got 150 to 100,000 in debt, so they can get out and make $30,000 in the workforce. And you can't live on that. You just fucking can't live on it.
See out the outrageous rates, and then how these crazy banks are just taking advantage of these students with the that actually try and pay off what they can, and hardly makes a dent. I mean, it's very unfortunate,
Yeah,
but I don't fault anybody for trying to at all for going to school and staying with it. But you are going to have your kids that they can do that. They can go on and pursue education, or they're going to, I was always great with my hands. I always wanted to work with my hands. I didn't want to be buried in books and tests and all that. So, it's just kind of more than likely you go one way or the other when you get that age. But yeah, I was in the sheet metal union, which is the HVAC guys. So it's a lot of welding, a lot of fabrication, strong math, a lot of math. But they train you, it's on their dime. You're not paying anything for the school. In fact, I got half of my wages while I was there. It was 5 weeks out of the year, 5-year apprenticeship. And the local I was in, once you hit journeyman, you're making 32 an hour,
Yeah.
probably more now. But
And you can
my
survive on
family
it.
was growing. I couldn't really handle the layoffs. So I didn't make it through and I went with another job. But here I am 6, 7 years later, and I'm probably going to be in the hopefully test into carpenters union here soon.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to jump on every opportunity. You're in a much different situation than if you were a single guy with no kids. All of a sudden, the pressures come about not so much you, but making sure your kids have everything they need. I'll be honest with you, when my wife and I found out that she was pregnant, neither one of us had great jobs at the time. But over and above that, the day we found out she was pregnant, we both got laid off. And so I'm sitting here thinking, I got a responsibility now to make sure my kids have everything they need. And I don't see a way for me doing that. I didn't finish college. And that was an era where college was kind of important. I had a lot of work experience, things I've done, but they didn't want to um, accept that as experience, which seemed ridiculous. But I understand what people feel like, when they're sitting there and there is no hope. I'm a big hope guy. The reason I'm a hope guy, because I've been in situations before where there seems like there's no hope, but somehow I found my way out the other side. And I think that's the case with everybody. But that's one thing we have to do with this country. I think people are finally becoming hip to the fact that we've got a government that's working against people like you and me and everybody else in the middle class. And that's got to change if we hope to stay healthy in this country, have the government and have the country and democracy stay healthy. Over and above not electing Donald Trump and the Republicans, we've got to put our focus, and got to presume the Democrats are going to do that, put our focus on the middle class and help it to flourish, because that's the only way this country survives.
And Joe understands that. You got to build from the middle out and not the top down, like they've already tried how many times and failed. But
Well, there was a child tax credit.
I believe all that's going to get smooth.
Did you
Go ahead.
benefit from the child tax credit? I know my son did because he has a kid, my granddaughter. But then while that's going on, you got the Republicans pushing against that. No, we don't want to help parents and kids. Did you benefit from the child tax credit? And where is that now? Do you still get it, or was that taken away?
It still shows up on your taxes. You still get to claim a child tax credit, but the amount has gone down year after year.
Well, for a while there, during COVID or just after COVID, weren't they even sending you money to help out instead of a tax credit, sending you money? Isn't that what they were doing for a time?
Yeah, during the pandemic, for sure, they were giving tax. Yeah, that went on throughout that whole year, 21. and it went a long way. I mean, that was helping us with our daycare and at the time formula, diapers, big time. We just you start getting that money every I think it was once a month. I think it was
Yeah.
one day a month that would hit your account. It was like $300 or something, but you know, it was there when we needed it. And
But even still, that was taken away. And that's the thing I find hard to imagine. A government giving you some benefit and then coming in later and said, well, that's enough. We're taking it away. But the only reason that was taken away is because the obstructionist Republicans. That's what people have to understand. They don't care about you. They're not working for you. And if they can hurt you in the process to help wealthy people, they're going to fucking do it.
they are going to do it, and it all the way down to the core. They're gonna lie. They're gonna gerrymander. They're gonna wipe their ass with subpoenas.
Yeah.
They're gonna do what they and our way to step up to that is to vote against it. So that's what we all got to do. That's what we are going to do. And when you know when it comes to the economy and how outrageous stuff is and everything spiked, the system was completely broken when Captain Dipshit let this pandemic take over the way it did and the way he handled it. So if anything goes back to the course of blame of why shit's all messed up so bad the way it is now.
Well, you will hear Republicans say, "Well, COVID happened, so you can't blame Donald Trump for the economy and all that stuff." And I always push back. I say, "Listen, if there been a reasonable president like, say, Obama, and you use the committee that handles pandemics and you use the strategies as opposed to throwing all that shit out, we wouldn't have had." They complained about shutdowns and stuff like that. Had Donald Trump did anything, we wouldn't have had nearly the shutdowns that we had, and we wouldn't have had nearly the deaths that we have. So if you tell me that you can't blame Donald Trump about, regarding the economy because there's COVID, I blame Donald Trump for COVID, literally. I'm not for the disease coming out or the virus coming out, but just to ignore it can be completely negligence. It had a daisy chain effect, and it fucked up this country for about 2 years. It fucked up the economy. It put people back 10 steps where they had to dig their way out. And that there is no question that's on Donald Trump's ass.
All these corporate prices skyrocketed and they have not gone back down.
No.
And their job reports with their finance reports, they're bragging about their profits. So it's right there, black and white. And
Well, and that's it. They came in and they raised their prices because they could. And then when it came down to where the pandemic was over and things were getting back to normal, they said, "Hey, we like these prices. Let's just keep them here." They were willing to raise them under these extraordinary circumstances with COVID, but they weren't willing to pull back once it was over. They they thought it was a good thing, and now they've stuck with it, and they've decided to go as long as they can, as long as they get away with it. And up to this point, the Republicans have allowed them to get away with it.
yeah, they like the money they're making because they're all paid by them. So
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah,
And
it's
that's the Joe needs to, as you say, when it comes down to nut cutting time, I hope he's sitting there, you know, working with the other side and trying to come up to some agreement on, a tit for tat situation to where, maybe they can get, okay, we'll put your corporations at this much. That's fine. That's what you wanted. You can have this in your border bill. You can have this over here. But what I want is Citizens United to go bye bye
yeah.
right off the bat.
Well, if you look
So you ain't gonna touch it ever again.
right, well, if you look back in history when economic times were good, like back in the 50s, early 60s, or during Bill Clinton's tenure. What the common thread here is that corporations were paying a lot of taxes commensurate with the monies that they were making. As soon as Ronald Reagan comes in, or some of these other people come in and try to cut the taxes of these wealthy corporations, that's when the economy has trouble. That seems like a perfect illustration of what we should do and what we shouldn't do. But the Republicans refused to recognize that and continue to do what they do to feed these people money and continually uh, and slowly, but ultimately destroy the country. They're so fucking greedy that they will destroy the very country they represent just so they can line their pockets a little thicker.
Yeah, throw me $1 billion, oil people, so I can throw it into my quote unquote campaign. I'll take all regulations off.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
just, how stupid does that sound? It just, even with me saying it, I can't believe that what I'm hearing. It's just
Well,
so dumb.
some of the things that Donald Trump is saying shows utter desperation on his part. This is stuff no politician would say, but he continues to say these things. As I said before, when you're dealing with a narcissist and they get cornered and they don't have any way out, they start saying and doing everything, no matter how crazy, because they're panicking and they're hoping something sticks. You know, like the idea where Donald Trump says that he's the one that got the insulin for $35 a month. That's fucking ridiculous. It's wrong. It can be proven it's wrong. But this guy will say anything to get people believing what what he's saying. The unfortunate thing about Donald Trump, though, is the only people that believe what he's saying is his base, and he's already got their votes. He's not getting more votes by this bullshit, and he doesn't have enough common sense to understand that.
Why he keeps showing up to places that are already needs to expand, and he's not.
No, he
And
does
then
it.
them too. How are you going to pay to get there? All your money's wrapped up.
Well, and you know, he's come up with a couple of financial things that he's thrown out there, and they would be absolute disasters. The whole idea of people that letting people that get tips not have to pay taxes on it. He would get more play if he said, "We won't make people on Social Security pay taxes," because at one point people getting Social Security did not pay taxes on it, but they do now because Republicans. But Donald Trump is so dumb about that. Then he wants to get rid of taxes and offset it by putting more tariffs on. What he doesn't realize is those tariffs just get passed on to us, and we end up paying more than we would for taxes. It's just all performative for him. I'm going to get rid of your taxes and think people are dumb enough to believe what he's saying and that it might even fucking work.
In his mind, it worked in the past, so I'm going to keep spouting it and put a little more sprinkle on it and hope it works again. But when you're talking to your base, yeah, you think it's going to work, but it ain't. There
Right.
ain't 100,000 people there, Donnie. There's five. Like,
Yeah.
it ain't working, man.
You
He's going
you
to find out.
you can put sparkles on dog shit, but in the end, it's still just dog shit. And that's all he really knows. It's just about perception for him. And he thinks he's such a wonderful orator that he can make people believe. He continually fails, but for whatever reason, he can't grasp that. And think he honestly believes when he goes to this debate that he's going to kill it. He really thinks he's going to kill it. And personally, I like it when Trumplefucks go into something saying, we're going to win, because when they lose, they get fucking blindsided. And that just adds a little extra fun to me when they get your ass kicked and they weren't expecting it. They really believe that they would win.
I want him to come in there as prepared as he can be, you know? Just get some good sleep, knock off the Adderall for 5 or 6 days, you'll be all right. Put your one sentence down on your note cards, your little highlights that you think you have, and
Well,
the one time Joe's going to bring up something that might get under his skin, it's just going to go off the rails.
well,
It's just going to turn and be this stupid.
here's the big problem for Donald Trump in this debate. We know that they're going to cut off the mic. That works against his strategy. There's going to be no audience. He has nobody to play to. That's going to work against him. But there's one other rule in this thing that is the one thing that's going to devastate Donald Trump. You can't bring notes or scripts in. You can write shit down as you're going, but you can't have anything to answer a question. So now Donald Trump is going to have to speak off the top of his head, and we know how that's going to fucking go.
Who is hosting this event? Who is the
I believe it's Jake.
people he's
It's CNN and it's Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. I think. They're reasonable moderators. I'm not. I've been feeling some kind of way about CNN. They seem to go back and forth between Republicans and Democrats. I don't trust them, but they can only do so much to save Donald Trump in this particular instance.
right? Yeah, and it's going to be they're going to come in there with their serious questions, and Joe's going to have answers, and that right there might be too much for him. But
I can see them
I'm like
talk.
you, and let's get this thing going.
I can see him being asked about Roe v. Wade, and he'll tell everybody they got to ask him about Roe v. Wade and tell everybody, yeah, I did that. I'm proud of that. While 75% of the country hates that, and then maybe he'll go off on a tangent and say, Hannibal Lecter really liked the abortion issue, much like he was doing. He was interviewed in a book that's coming out, and the author interviewed him 6 times since being out of office, and he said this guy's fucking losing it. He's either lying or doesn't remember. He made one point, and I think I made that point with Old Soul yesterday. This author said that for whatever reason they got talking about celebrities, stars, and he said, well, Joan Rivers loves me. She voted for me in 2016. The unfortunate thing is that Joan Rivers died in 2014. So I don't think she voted unless Donald Trump is doing what he accused the Democrats of bringing in dead people to vote for him. It's just the whole thing is absolutely stupid. He doesn't think people are going to fact check him. Now, everybody's fact checking him and exposing him for the idiot or the liar he is.
Yeah, you can literally take every sentence out of his head and prove it the other way that he's saying it. And even way back when, I don't know how you get duped into this shit, but unfortunately, it took enough to do it.
Well,
But
we're
I'm not doing a backflip so I can go vote for Joe Biden. He is the president. He's who we got to vote for. But if I'm excited, it's 2028, and
yeah.
your young crop of both parties coming up, hopefully. And I want to do more looking into Miss Amy Klobuchar myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully,
Yeah, she's pretty solid, and she's from my home state. She's been around a long time. She's very smart. She's very tough. All I'm looking forward to with this debate is that Donald Trump is going to be there for an hour, totally hamstrung with all the rules, and he's going to have to speak extemporaneously for an hour. He's going to have to come off that delusional, fucked up head and respond to things. And it's going to be fucking hilarious. It's just going to be hilarious.
yeah, this is going to be something to watch for sure. Like I said, I was real pissed off about what happened 3 years ago. But this time, what goes around comes around, and I'm gonna have my popcorn and sitting there waiting.
Popcorn, adult beverage, and just sit back and enjoy the comedy. Well, Matt, we're going to wrap things up here. You, I don't have to get up and go to work, but I know you do. So we don't want to keep you any longer than we have to. I appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk. We've been kind of bouncing back and forth, but we finally connected, and I'm glad we did.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I love coming on. It's definitely no big deal for anybody wanting to come out there. I want to try and start a little trend here. If a guest
Sure.
comes on, likes what some of the emailers have to say, then we should call out one of them to try and get on the show. And I don't know, Garage Door Jeff emails usually get pretty good, so that'd be pretty cool if you'd hop
Well,
on here. But
I'll just say this about Garage Door Jeff. People have implored him to come on the show. I've said, come on the show, Garage Door Jeff. You're kind of a goofy fuck like me. It might be an interesting show. But Garage Door Jeff has never addressed him being on the show. So I'll just put this out there to Garage Door Jeff. You can continue doing what you're doing. We love seeing the emails. But if you don't come on the show, you're a pussy ass bitch. Just saying. Just saying. And if you're comfortable with that, just keep doing what you're doing. But he should come on the show.
I want to give a shout out to all the other guests though too. Old Soul, you're amazing. Ed, you're smart and hilarious as always. And Jace, Eric, and I know I'm forgetting some, but yeah, keep them coming. It's awesome.
Well,
I love the
yeah,
show and not going anywhere.
there's a lot of them. Alona, um, Janice, we had on recently. I know she wants to get back on. I was out of town, so Janice, if you're listening, let's set that up and have you come back on. They're all do a great job, and so yeah, we encourage them to send me an email, rationalboomer@gmail.com. And it's getting a little tighter these days because more and more people are willing to come on. So it's not quite as free and easy as it once was, but we'll still get you on. Don't worry about that. Well, Matt, thank you for coming on today. Go get some sleep. I know you always have a busy day with a couple of kids and a job and a wife and shit. That's a lot more work than I would care to do. I spent last night, I spent 2 hours with my granddaughter, and I got to get to fucking bed. She just wore me the fuck out. I just want to tell you this little story. I'm sitting on the couch, and my wife and I with my granddaughter, and I'm sitting there, and we just flew back from Georgia, and I haven't been feeling very well. And I sat back on the couch, and I started to fall asleep. And next thing I know, I got my granddaughter coming up with two blankets, putting it up around my neck and then down around my legs. I go, Junie, that's very sweet of you. And she says, well, we got to keep you comfy, cozy because you're very old. And I said in my head, fuck you, kid. But I appreciate the sentiment. And she ain't wrong. She ain't wrong about that. She nailed it. So anyway, Matt, thank you very much. I'm going to wrap things up. I'm going to go to bed myself. I appreciate you coming on. And like I've said, anytime you want to and we can work it out, by all means, show up.
All right. Glad to be on, and you stay cozy, Mike.
I will stay cozy. All right. Well, for those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. Hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.